Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for attending this second webinar we've been doing here at Corpoderm. We're gonna take this hour, 55 minutes, an hour to go over LED light therapy. It's a subject that it's a technology we've been working with for over a decade in France. It's a very passionate, fascinating subject to discover, I believe so. We did one event last month that was a pretty good success in the way that people really enjoyed it and had a lot of questions regarding the LED light therapy specifically as we talked about different subjects. So yeah, I decided to make a second webinar solely on LED light therapy to ensure that the message comes across and give the opportunity to answer any possible question y'all may have. So far we're just a little bit of participants, but that's amazing. I'd be happy to get to know everybody. If y'all can just confirm that you can hear me correctly, and if so, I'll just start in 30 seconds, 15 seconds. Perfect. Okay, sounds good. Let me share. Yes. All right. Thank you, Alima. All right. Let me share my screen and we get started. So the chat is open in case you need any, like, if you don't hear me correctly, if there's anything or else, I'll be here. All right, let's get started. So today, as I was saying, we're going to take an hour to talk about LED light therapy. But first, let's get to know each other a little bit. Who we are. You just jump on a webinar. Who is this guy? It looks pretty young. What does he know about LED light therapy? That's all great questions. So my name is Kevin. I am the head of US operations for Corpoderm, which is a company created in 2005. It's a business that has been ran and successfully ran by a family for almost 20 years now, distributing aesthetic devices. Okay, so that's who we are. In France, we're based in the southwest by Toulouse. It's by the Spanish border. And we have almost 40 employees by now. And so we decided to go in Texas and in America in general 2 years ago. And this is where I fit in, as they offered me the position to come here and develop the unit. So we pride ourselves very much in working with trust, reliability, efficiency, and profitability. So the idea when we distribute a device, when we talk about a device, is first to get some knowledge on the ground, then answer your question, understand you, and try to build something on the long term, not just to distribute and go. Distribute and go. We try to be here with you and build a project with you, because it's first, I believe it's funner, like there's more fun to it, and for you there's more sense to it financially, because we're talking about several thousands of dollars for each investment. But anyway, so just a few pictures of a catalog. This is, for example, a diode laser hair removal that we distribute for all skin type. It's called a Zera, FDA approved. We have our IPL Cella for skin rejuvenation, hair removal. We've been distributing this technology for over a decade now as well. We have other devices, skin and hair analysis. This one is our favorite and the most attractive over the last months. We welcomed in late 2023. I love this. We have another thing called Melancolor, which is a skin typer, which is going to give you your Fitzpatrick skin type and your level of melanin, which is important because it'll allow you to make sure you have the right skin type for each treatment when you do hair removal or when you do photofacials. Because, for example, if I go to Cancun for 2 weeks after my first photofacial session, which is the case for me, I don't know if you can see, but I'm very red because unfortunately I took the sun. I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, I took the sun all weekend. So my skin type is likely changing and different from what it used to be a week ago. So it's important. And of course, we distribute LED light therapy, and this is what we're going to talk about right now. Because it's been already 5 minutes, you're probably wondering, okay, let's dig into the subject. But cool. The idea for me when I do a presentation like this is to get at least a little bit of interaction. I know it's difficult, it's a webinar, and I know people can be shy. It's always better when it's like in person, but I'm gonna have a couple of questions here and there throughout the presentation. If y'all want to participate and answer, that always makes it a little bit funner. So yeah, the first question would be, who has heard of LED light therapy before in general? Chat's open. I don't know if you can, yeah, fully. I have, okay. Okay, Asma, you never used it. Okay. Okay, to an extent for Lima. Well, that's great. That's great. If you heard about it, you probably heard a little bit about theory, about what it is. But here is going to be a great way to really dig into those knowledge and those key points of theory. Like when I say LED light therapy, what do you think about mainly? What the like words, what comes to your mind? Don't be shy. I promise it's funner. It will target specific skin concerns. Yes, that's very good. Uh-huh. We'll dig into this, but basically, each color of the LED light therapy equals one specific wavelength in a nutshell, which will allow to work in a specific range of applications. And so who here in the room thinks being under the sun is the same thing as LED light therapy? Because it's the one major feedback that I hear in the US, in France as well. People sometimes are like, yeah, I'd rather go under the sun. It's the same thing. I don't believe this works. Does anybody think this here? Nice. Okay, so that's good. All right, I'm gonna keep going. So why is the sun different in the first place? Because I think it's important. It's the base of the base. When you talk about light, you probably think about the light that's in our showroom, for example, here, or that's in your living room. How is that any different? Why is the sun in the first place different? Oh, we got another chat. I've seen many institutions use jelly mask with the. I'll answer this, but in a nutshell, it is not recommended. But I'll answer this in a little bit, Asma. Um, so why is the sun different? Firstly, UV exposure. There's no UV exposure when you work with LED light therapy. The wavelengths used in LED light therapy are different than what you get in the light of the sun. The intensity, of course, is very low level of intensity when I'm working with LED light therapy, which makes the risk for the skin, skin damage and everything very minimal and like almost inexistent. If you go under the sun for 5 hours, you're gonna look kind of like me, and you can develop higher risk of cancer or skin damage or skin aging. If you go 5 hours under LED light therapy, you're probably gonna trigger good reactions, even though I don't recommend just doing 5 hours straight ahead. And of course, LED light therapy is a controlled treatment. FDA hasn't approved the sun yet. LED light therapy has been approved and studied and researched, etc. All right, now I'm gonna dig into the main theory of it. So what does LED light therapy do? Okay, so I'm gonna say this phrase out loud, and then we're gonna examine it, okay? So it is the modification of cell metabolism through the action of light. The light emitted by the LEDs will stimulate the synthesis of biochemical reactions that take place in our cells. So it's a bit of a mouthful. You're probably wondering, what does this mean? What, like, it sounds like a lot of fancy word, but does it even have a sense to it? Well, let's dig into it. First, part of the breakdown. So cell, what is a cell? So without cells, there's no life. Since they are at the origin of the formation of organism, they're constantly renewing themselves. But sometimes their proliferation, I apologize, becomes abnormal, generating diseases, or just it's lower. It doesn't fulfill the function anymore. Cells regeneration is at the heart of LED light therapy, and each cell functions independently in a body, but in harmony with all the others. They're interconnected and they're exchanging energy. Okay. So cell metabolism. So cell metabolism refers to the chemicals reaction that's happening within the cells to maintain life. Okay. These reactions involve the breakdown of nutrients to produce energy and the synthesis of molecules needed for cellular reactions. Okay. So it's a bit of a mouthful in itself as well, but it's all a chemical reaction that's occurring to generate life, basically. Okay. LEDs. What is an LED? So LED, optoelectric component, casting a monochromatic light, so one color. There's various type of LEDs, okay? The power is important, either lower or higher than 1 watt, and within the spectrum of emission, depending on it, whether it's chromatic, it's white, or it's infrared. Okay. I'll go back on the power after. So when I'm referring to power right now, it's just the power of the component in itself. But there's also the intensity of the LED that we'll talk about a little bit after. So that's it. Then light emitted. What are we talking about? So LED light therapy stimulates the cell metabolism through the action of specific wavelengths of light. Okay. So when these wavelengths, these light waves penetrate the skin, they are absorbed by what we call chromophores. We'll talk about it in very shortly. So basically, I have LED, light emitting diodes, less power, more power, chromatic, white, infrared, casting a wavelength of light. And depending on the wavelength, it's going to be absorbed by a specific component in my body that I call chromophores. What is a wavelength? Can anybody here tell me what's a wavelength? I'll wait 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Okay, I'll probably go ahead then. So what is a wavelength? So we talk about wavelengths a lot in general in a lot of different technologies, whether you do laser hair removal, IPL, or here LED, you talk about wavelengths, and it seems like a pretty acquired knowledge for people like you say wavelengths, but what does it mean really? So it can mean a different stuff, whether it's we talk about sound, where you're talking about light, but in the context of light, it's basically the distance between successive peak, okay, through a wave. So basically the light travels as a wave, okay, travels like that naturally. And whether it's very stretched out or it's going to be more narrow. Okay. And depending on where I am on the spectrum, the distance between my peaks and my throughs. Okay. So you see there's peaks, throughs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so a wavelength is going to be distance between two peaks. Okay. So if I'm looking on the right side of the spectrum here, for example, I can see the red light and I can see the distance between the two peaks or is longer than when I'm looking at purple, blue, green, et cetera, et cetera. So this is how we calculate the distance and how we calculate the length of a wavelength that we calculate in nanometers, basically. So this is how we say this wavelength is longer than one another. And we say red light therapy goes deeper because it has a higher wavelength than the blue light therapy. So it's basically what it is in a nutshell. Please don't hesitate to use the chat Q&A to Ask questions if you didn't understand correctly, of course. But in a nutshell, this is what a wavelength is. And this is how we calculate it. Okay. Going back to what I said, when these light waves penetrates the skin, they are absorbed by chromophores. What is a chromophore? So it is a molecule or part of a molecule that absorbs certain wavelengths of light, okay? Causing the molecule to get excited, okay? And generate energy. Going back to the last part of a phrase, the light emitted by the LEDs will stimulate the synthesis of biochemical reactions that take place in our cells. So basically, what do we have? We have chromophores, okay? They're gonna act like a photoreceptors. They play a role of photoreceptors of this light. They absorb the light, energy triggers. Basically, the absorbed light energy by the chromophores will trigger a biochemical reactions within what we call the mitochondria. Okay, so you have chromophores, molecule, part of a molecule in my body that's going to receive that light. Okay, it's going to trigger biochemical reactions within what we call mitochondria and enhance the cell's ability to produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, which is basically essential for cells function, repair, regeneration. And here, in a very, very big nutshell, you have your photobiomodulation or LED light therapy, okay, which is also known as LLLT, low-level light therapy, different names, but basically the process that's happening is photobiomodulation. Mitochondria, what, you might say? I talked about it just right now. So as I was saying, the absorbed light triggers biochemical reactions within the mitochondria. What is the mitochondria? It's basically the energy factory of the cell. So basically, it's the cellular respiration of the cell. Inside it, there's an enzyme producing the energy of the cell, which is called the ATP. We talked about it, the adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so this molecule will carry energy, and this is basically the currency for intracellular energy transfer. Okay, so it stores, transport chemical energy within cells for the metabolism. So it's very crucial for energy transfer and storage necessary for cellular like function and life processes. So basically, you absorb the light by photoreceptors. Those photoreceptors will travel to the, in a nutshell, travel to the mitochondria, which is the energy factory, triggers more production of the enzyme necessary to produce energy like in the cells and accelerate, enhance the cells, the regeneration of the cells. It's pretty simple when you explain like this, but there's a bit of scientific words, etc. But it's very, very simple. Think about a light being reception by specific chromophores, depending on whether like the depth of my light travels directly to the mitochondria to produce more energy, the energy of the cell, which is the ATP. That's basically it. Then the more I have it, the more my cells are going to be healthy and produce more energy and accelerate the processes targeted, whether it's on skin, whether it's on hair, etc., etc. So first conclusions, what do we have in this very theoretical part? You have light, part of a wide spectrum in a specific wavelength, okay? Penetrating as a result in your skin more or less deeper. Because again, the wavelengths we've studied when we go back to the spectrum, we studied that it could be very narrow, hence having a very short wavelength in terms of size, nanometers, or a very wide and long wavelength here on the red. And basically, when you think about light, you got to think the longer my wavelengths, when it's going to penetrate the skin, the longer it's going to go inside my skin, inside my body. So the thing that's going to receive that energy, that's photonic energy, that's light energy, is going to be different depending on what I'm targeting. And we're going to go on to this. It's basically the chromophores. So concrete info. We talked about chromophores. Does anybody have any idea on which chromophores or photoreceptors are being used when I'm doing LED light therapy? It could be, it's part of, it's within the skin. What's happening? What am I targeting and what's receiving that energy? Just gonna make sure that, yeah, perfect. It's well shared. Okay, so basically, first we have the melanin. So the melanin is gonna be the first photoreceptor, the first chromophore. So up to 600 nanometers. Okay, so the spectrum can go from 450 to 830 nanometers, approximately, I'm saying roughly, and up to 600 nanometers. So that's the first threshold of depth for the nanometers. The melanin will be the first photoreceptor. So your skin, everybody's skin contains a varying proportion of melanin. Okay, there's two types of melanin. There's the pheomelanin and the eumelanin. Okay, so one will have more sun protection, more UV protection, basically, and the other less, depending on eumelanin, pheomelanin. I don't have them in mind correctly right now, but basically, whether you have skin type 1, skin type 6, you're going to have a different proportion of those two of those two types of melanin, basically. But melanin will be the first photoreceptor of that energy. Second one is going to be hemoglobin, up to 600 nanometer as well. There's 3 of them up to 6 nanometers. So it's the main pigment that gives blood its color, is responsible for the effects sought in the vascularities, in the vascular. The third will be the proteins. So up to 600 nanometers as well. They're contained in fibroblasts, in cell membranes, and in certain bacteria. Okay. So all those three, I have melanin, I have hemoglobin, I have proteins, are going to act as photoreceptors to receiving this energy and carrying out at the right place to produce more cells. Okay. To help the cells regenerate faster. Sorry. And then deeper, on a deeper level, 850 nanometers, up to 850 nanometers, I'm going to target the water, okay, intradermal water in my skin. So when I'm going to work on more red light therapy, more like longer wavelengths, the water will play a very important part. So it absorbs the light deep in the skin during illumination. Water absorbs light primarily through the vibrational and rotational motions of its constituent molecules. So it's a lot of mouthfuls as well, but it's important to understand, because water, what do you mean, like exactly water? So through vibrations and rotational motions of the molecules that it absorbs the energy. When light interacts with water molecules, it can transfer energy to these motions, causing the molecules to vibrate and rotate more vigorously. So pretty interesting, I think. And secondly, the wavelengths. So as you can see on the spectrum, I can see that if I look at orange, I don't have the same wavelengths as blue, as green, as red. So if I'm understanding things correctly, I'm understanding that the optimal chromophores, like depending on the length, the depth, okay, of my wavelengths, I'm going to go more or less deep within the skin. And the photoreceptors, the optimal photoreceptor, will be different depending on the length of my wavelengths, basically. So different wavelengths will trigger different reactions, different applications. So you talked about red light therapy, there's blue light therapy, yellow light therapy, et cetera, et cetera. Because they're targeting different depth and working with different chromophores, photoreceptors, they're not going to have the same applications. So the first, we're working with blue light. Okay, so blue light therapy, I took So as you can say, sorry, I'm going back on thoughts, but it's important. You can see here on the spectrum that when we look at blue, it seems like a pretty big wide space, meaning that it's a range of like nanometers. It might be from 400 to 450, for example. So here, when I put in parentheses the nanometers, this is the nanometer we have in our LED light therapy device right behind me. So in blue light, we are working at around 415 nanometers. Okay, so it's going to be more superficial light absorption. We're going to work on the epidermis, the first layer of the skin mainly. It's very powerful for antibacterial properties, is used to treat mild to moderate acne, and purifies the skin, stabilize sebaceous glands, and soothe inflammation. So very great for light work. For acne, is going to be used a lot. It's a great start, and a lot of device actually that you're going to see on the market. For example, our device has 5 lights, okay, 5 wavelengths, 5 colors. But if you look on the market, you have a playad of products from $50 to $500, $15,000. Some might have only one color. Red light therapy, for example, is going to be the main one because it's the most widely spread on the market for estheticians. Some will have 2 wavelengths, and most of them that have 2 colors will have blue light and red light because they're kind of the extreme and will kind of work together. But the counterpart of this is that I'm working on a very too extreme part of the spectrum. So theoretically, I can reach everything, but it's not going to be as powerful, as precise and targeted as having multiple layers, what I call layers, like wavelengths and colors. So this was the first wavelength. The second wavelength is green that we have, 520 nanometers. Selectively absorbed by pigment spots and allow them to be lightened. It improves the uniformity of the complexions. It works a lot on hyperpigmentation spots. It's very good for distressing, relaxing properties. I use it personally. I started doing LED light therapy 2 years ago, and this was one of the first color I've used because I have a pretty active and what we could call a stressful lifestyle. So it's important for me to take some breaks. And having a mini nap or take a break with this light kind of helps a lot. So it helps a lot in decreasing the stress. Yellow light will penetrate a little bit deeper because I'm working with 590 nanometers. It will penetrate the skin at the boundary between epidermis and dermis. It will reduce redness and calm inflammation. Okay, very important. It works very hand in hand with red light therapy, especially for inflammation. It's important, and it won't go as deep as the red light, which is a great complement. They complement each other very well. It accelerates healing and improves blood circulation, and of course, draining and detoxifying effect. We'll see right after. I'm going to put an example of one of a protocol that we have, and you can see how they complement each other. Red light, the most known on the market, red light therapy, 633 nanometers in our device, okay? So this is the last color we're going to have on the visible spectrum of light. So I'm going to target deep layers of the skin. So inflammation, circulation, cell renewal, like intense cell renewal is going to be amazing. It stimulates fibroblast activity very well. So for the skin, for people with redness problem, acne problem, blue light mixing with red light is going to be great. For example, here when we do events at our showroom in Austin, in Texas, we welcome people with a skin analysis. Okay, so we have a device, DP Skin. We do 19 criteria of analysis, hair and skin. Okay, then we carry on with IPL photofacial treatment. And then one of the side effects of the IPL is that I might have something similar to a sunburn. I'm going to have more redness, etc. And this red light will be a good part of the protocol that we use for redness reduction. It promotes a more dynamic, youthful complexion. It is great right before a party, right before something. Like IPL is gonna work like a charm for those kind of those kind of problems, those kind of applications, basically. Um, and then the last one that we have, and again, if I'm referring to my spectrum, so here, this is my visible spectrum, but after this, I have something that I cannot see with the light, with my eye. It's the infrared light, 830 nanometers, penetrates deeper than any color in the spectrum, and will have a greater depth, greater effect than a red light. It really fights deep within the skin, the signs of aging. It is used a lot for wounds, cuts, damage, and not only in the aesthetic world. We'll go over this later, but basically there's multiple fields using LED light therapy because there's so many things I can do with it. It's not only aesthetic, but in this case, it will work a lot on sign of aging. So let me just remove my notes a little bit because I went freestyle for a little bit. But basically, okay. So here, what is the difference really between wavelengths? Because I'm talking about colors, I'm talking about blue, red. What does it mean? What are we talking about? You know, it's the same thing as wavelengths. Well, I use it every day, but what do I mean by wavelengths really? So here in this case, if I'm taking the example of blue and red, the color blue has a shorter wavelength than the red light because it has a higher frequency. In the visible spectrum, I'm going to go slower. I know I speak fast, but I'm going to go slow. In the visible spectrum, blue light has wavelengths ranging for 450, 400 to 495 nanometers, while the red light has a wavelength ranging more from 620 to 750 nanometers. And the difference in wavelengths is due to the way light waves interacts with matter and how our eyes perceive these interactions as different colors. Okay, so it's how I interact, those wavelengths, those light waves interact with matter and how us perceive it. Okay, so it not just happened to like, I mean, of course it's science, how it works, but we didn't just put random colors like this. He has a sense and he has a meaning. This is all about frequency, interactions with matters, and how we perceive it as human. So now that we understand that depending on the light and on the wavelengths, different chromophores will be more adapted to a specific color, basically, because I'm talking about different depth. So I'm repeating a lot this information that depth will matter because depending on the depth, I'm not using the same thing. I cannot just put blue light and expecting to be all good with sign of aging. We got to understand that different wavelengths will fight different things. Okay. So here, yeah, this basically what I was about to say. Quick parenthesis, 2-minute stop, because I can send you more information on the history of LED light therapy after, but history in a nutshell. So how we started. LED light therapy, we can track back LED light therapy as early as 3,500 BC in ancient Egypt, where people there were using LED light therapy, mixing it, I mean, light, mixing it with plants to treat vitiligo. So yeah, they were using light in mix with plants to treat vitiligo. Then let's go back to closer to us. It became widely spread over the 20th century. So people over the centuries, of course, used it, believed that light has some kind of power to it and healing power, but it got widely spread, of course, over the 20th century. Started with Dr. Niels Finzen. I can't remember which one is Danish and one is Dutch. I apologize. But Dr. Niels Finzen worked on, sorry, let me put my notes to have the specific, yes, a cutaneous tuberculosis. Basically, he used LED light therapy to work on a treatment for form of cutaneous tuberculosis with light radiation, basically. Further down the road, a couple of years later, Dr. Andrew Mester developed a research to help with skin cancer, basically. So what happened? He had two groups of mouses in a lab. He shaved one of the group of the mouses, and the other, he shaved both of them, but put one of the group of the mouses under light for the whole for the duration of the treatment, frequently, and it happened that this group of mouses grew their hair back twice as fast as the other group. So this is how we became aware of the biostimulation, basically, that the laser and the light stimulates hair growth. And this is how we developed further down the road specific protocols for hair growth to help with scalp treatment, hair growth treatment on people. Yeah. Then Fritz Popp, this is a German researcher, I apologize, proved that plants, animals, and humans emit and capture light continuously. And light is then considered as a communication system between cells. So this is how we gain more theory, more certain knowledge about the technology, and yeah, it became more structured in the knowledge. And then in the 80s, NASA biochemists and astronauts had problems in various space missions with plants dying, as well as skin and wound healing problems for astronauts, basically. And also when they were coming down to Earth, the collapse of their cellular metabolism was a big problem. They faced a lot of problems, and all of this was kind of resolved where they increased the amount of photons. Okay, so light energy, in a nutshell, is what we call photonic energy, an energy composed of photon. Okay, so by increasing the amount of photon during the emission, they solved all their problems, and on top of that, it boosted their cellular regeneration. So this is how, since then, basically the development of research, of new protocols have emerged, and we started building and manufacturing stronger, more efficient technologies. We'll go on that in just a little bit, but because not every LED are on the same level. As again, on the market, you can find $50 or $15,000. There's a reason for that. There's not just higher profit. So some might personally, they might do, but there's a reason for this. So yeah, closing down on this little page, little parenthesis on history. Let's go back on more practical information. So 3 main fields use LED. Okay, sports helps a lot on wound healing for athletes, for pain management, resting. For example, I did soccer for 2 days intensively last week, and I went to the office, I used LED light therapy for my legs, and it really helped reducing soreness. In medical, it's used a lot in cancer, certain type of cancers, oncology, and precancerous conditions. It also works, like for sports, in wound healing and pain management. And then in aesthetics, widely used for, as you were saying earlier, skin concerns. So skin rejuvenation, acne, reducing of inflammation, pain. It will help overall reducing wrinkles, help with skin texture. Obviously, over the years, we developed more protocols. But now I have 2 options with my LEDs. I talk about protocols because there's 2 things to understand really about LED now that I'm done with theory. First, I can use individual wavelengths on a broad use. Okay, I know that red will work overall on anti-inflammatory rejuvenation. Green might be more relaxing, general look of my complexion. That's fine. So I'm understanding that one light, one wavelength, one color will help in a broad range of application, being different, like each wavelength having their broad range of applications. Or I can dig further into it and combine multiple wavelengths, okay, each at a specific power, okay, of casting and time, the amount of time I'm going to put this light on my arm, on my head, to target more specific applications. So either I have one light that's going to target one broad branch, as we saw earlier, for example, blue, green have different properties, but the idea is to combine them together, okay? So then I'm going to read that caption in the bottom so it can be clear. Although a single wavelength applied can theoretically help a range of applications, it is more effective to combine them to target more specific applications. Depending on the application that I'm working on, stretch marks, skin tightening, cellulitis, acne, the idea is to play with different wavelengths benefits by adjusting the settings of power, time, and hence those for each individual wavelength. So this is how we for example, at Corpoderm, and you have other companies that do it good on the market, develop technologies entering more targeted application. Because as a med spa, the key, especially in the US, is to be fast, is to be efficient, is for that money to be worth. And if I'm just casting sometimes red light therapy, it's going to help overall range of applications. Is going to do great if I'm doing with the right power. If it's a very intense power for long enough, it's going to work. But if I'm targeting specific problems, if I come into a med spa with stretch marks problems, I have to be able to not just start to say, yeah, let's do yellow light because I know it's going to work overall in this. No, let's try to be a little bit more specific so that I can short the amount of sessions I'm going to do, the amount of time, and overall the result. I'm going to better my result and my efficiency. That's very important to bear this in mind. I took the example of protocols here on the device in the back. So we have 18 of them. I can name a few: skin tone corrections, acne management, cellulitis, stretch marks. I talked about it. It is a very, very trendy one. People already, so our clients are moving forward with the LED. A lot of them are highly interested in the first place by the stretch mark because it appears to be a more demanding issue when clients come to the med spa. You can work on hydration, stomach thinning, heavy legs, the feeling of soreness, redness reduction, as I was saying. And we have 2 protocols for hair: scalp care, hair care. I know this question might pop up later, so I might answer it right now. The average time for a session, at least for our device, is between 8 minutes to 40 minutes. And the scalp care and hair care is going to be the longer because it's going to take time to really soak and absorb this energy. Okay, but still, in 8 minutes, that's pretty fast. I know, for example, the stretch mark one is 21 minutes. So 21 minutes, you do 8 sessions, 12 sessions of it, boom, you're done. And you can have very successful result. And talking about result, that's a great transition that I promised I didn't work on. Let's look at some before and after. So on the scalp, for example, here we can see a great result obtained in 10 sessions for a frequency of once a week. So here you can see the before on the left, after on the right. You can see tremendous result. And depending on the application that I have, on the protocol that I'm using, anti-aging, I'm not going to require the same number of sessions as stretch marks. Stretch marks is going to require a little bit more work. Stretch marks, for example, 12 sessions. If I'm doing anti-aging, it's between 6 to 8 only. So then my job as a spa owner is to adapt my pricing, my packages, and to market it the right way. So here it took 10 sessions to see those great results. And obviously you see them like gradually, but here you can see the main result being after 10 sessions. We recommend 2 sessions a week max. Obviously you can do more sessions, but I would say as a med spa or as an esthetician, it's very good to do twice a week, So the frequency is good, twice a week MAC. A lot of application requires only once a week. It depends really on the client as well, but ideally at least once a week. Here we can see on hair growth, how it grew. Here, 13 sessions for 1 session a week on hair growth. It's pretty fascinating. I'm starting to use it as well on hair growth because I might have a lot of hair, but I'm starting to thin a tiny bit. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to have this at hand. Skin rejuvenation, you can see the before and after on wrinkles and overall complexion of the skin. Facial expression, 10 sessions as well, twice a week. Fine lines, wrinkles, 10 sessions as well. Oops. Stretch marks, the one I was talking about, 13 sessions. So on average, we do 12 sessions. Here we probably require 1 touch-up. You can see the difference. It's incredible. Just with light therapy, you wouldn't expect this, but here, can you imagine the client going in the med spa with concerns and probably insecurities, unfortunately, who just wanted to get rid of this problem? 15 sessions, twice a week, non-invasive treatment, no UV exposure, very little risk unless you take photosensitizing medicine and other small like contraindications. There's no risk. So it's a pretty fascinating technology. Here, redness, 13 sessions twice a week. I'm going to go back so you can take pictures if you need to. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. This one might be the most proving result. Yeah, I love it. Hive wrinkles, 10 sessions twice a week as well. So now, what did we see? We overseen the theoretical part of LED light therapy. We understood the different applications on the more concrete application with the practical applications. Now, 2 areas to focus to finish this webinar. It is important to understand the notion of power and fluence when I'm talking about LED light therapy, because as I was saying, not LEDs staying on the same ground. Although it is great, if you don't have the means to invest $15,000, $10,000, you can go with the $50 light therapy you can find on Amazon. But you gotta bear in mind that the power will be far from being the same as the other one, and hence the efficiency will be far different. The number of sessions required will be tremendously different. And so it all comes down to what I say to my clients. Either you want to have the LED light therapy as an add-on, okay, which is fine. I do a facial. I'm going to treat my client for a little free LED light therapy, red light therapy, or 10 minutes. I'm going to pay $20, something like this. It's fine. Or I really want to invest and develop a range of services around LED light therapy. And in this case, I would suggest invest a little bit more. And profitability-wise, you can get land back on your feet pretty easily. But sorry for being sidetracked. Area of focus. So first, power. The optical power plays a fundamental role in the therapeutic action of LEDs on tissues. So more power brings more photonic energy. Okay, remember photonic energy, light therapy is basically composed of photons traveling. And therefore, okay, more power brings more photonic energy and therefore allows to compensate the natural dispersion of photons and thus to reach more precisely the targeted effect. It is important to be able to adjust the photon density and the dose received according to the problems to be treated. So one big problem and one big area of focus we just discovered, the light travels, okay, as a wave, and it's basically composed of photons. As it travels down, okay, let's say from here, travels down, oops, sorry, yeah, right here, it travels down like this, photons will disperse naturally in the air, okay? So I'm gonna lose some energy. So it's important to adjust the intensity in the first place from a distance of photons so that I have the right power received on the area. But how do we measure our LED device, you might ask? So firstly, is the power density, what we call irradiance. It's basically milliwatts per square centimeters, and it's basically the qualitative criterion. Is the amount of energy casting at any given time. And the fluence in joule per square centimeters is the quantitative criterion. It's basically the amount of energy received on an area for a particular amount of time. Okay, so while irradiance gives an indication of the intensity of light at a particular moment over my screen, for example, here, I'm going to show you. Ooh, sorry. So here, for example, I have my panel right here. So it's going to be, the irradiance will be the intensity of light at a particular moment. And fluence provides a measure of the total energy delivered during the entire treatment. Okay, because the time plays an important notion as well. How the two indicators work together. So going back, irradiance is measured in milliwatts per square centimeters. Okay, milliwatts per square centimeters times the time, the duration of my treatment equals to a specific dose received in joule per square centimeters. And on calculation, this represents the following. So if I'm applying 5 milliwatts per square centimeters, it's going to take me 200 seconds to have 1 joule, okay, of energy. If I have 20, it's going to take me 50 seconds to have 1 joule. If I have 100, so very more powerful, it's going to take me only 10 seconds to get 1 joule. So now you understand two things. You know that your client might be a little bit patient, might come to you and say, I have the money, I'm willing to do this treatment, but I don't have a whole day. So I want to be sure that it works. And you're going to say, yeah, I have the device that works for it. But you cannot stay an hour under the LED light therapy treatment. Okay, so it has to be powerful so that you cast a lot of energy at the right time. You allow to compensate the natural dispersion of the photons, and you get a tremendous amount of energy in a very short time. Here, we're going from 200 seconds from 10 seconds, okay? Very important. I went probably a little bit ahead of schedule in this, but basically the optical power plays a fundamental role in the therapeutic action of LEDs on tissues. More power brings more photonic energies being casted, and therefore allows to compensate the natural dispersion of photons. So distance and power density are key because the effectiveness of my LED treatments depend on two main factors: the amount of light absorbed and the diffusion of this amount of light in the targeted tissues. Because so it depends on I'll go about it. Sorry, I'll 1 second. But basically, the distance you can see here on the right, as I'm going down, as I'm farther away, the energy, the density will disperse and will slow down because I have more dispersion of the photon. So if I'm farther away, if I'm from here, for example, compared to here, I'm going to receive less photonic energy on my skin, so less power, etc. So it's going to take longer. So you need to adjust the distance and the power. Here, when we do LED light treatment, we recommend one width of a hand, basically, from here. You put it right here, and this is how we calculated our protocols, energy, etc., etc. But then we talked about the diffusion of this amount of light in the targeted tissues, because there's chromophores that need to get this energy, receive it, to then help the mitochondria produce the ATP, right? But there's another problem. Your skin, so only 40–50% of that energy will reach your target, okay? That's crazy when you think about it. Why? Because your skin is a natural barrier against external aggression, whether it's chemicals, physical, whatever. So your skin will naturally reject 40, 50, 60% of that light they received, okay, to protect you, basically. So you understand what? First, loss of the photons will naturally disperse, okay? When I'm casting, going from here, the panel, to like 4 inches, 5 inches, basically, I'm losing a bit of energy. But then my skin is saying, I'm only letting 50% in. So I'm having the loss of photons plus the reflection of light from the skin. So I need to ensure that I have enough power, because if I have a very low-powered LED light therapy device, what I'm going to have? I'm going to do a treatment for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but then I don't have enough energy because it takes time to receive that dose of one or multiple joules, okay? And the natural dispersion of the photons and my skin rejected half of it. So in theory, it's not for nothing. You got a little bit, but the amount of what you got compared to what you should have and what you could have is different. And if we're talking on a professional business standpoint, it's not going to be that effective. It might be a good solution again for you, depending on what's your business plans. But if you intend to market a LED light therapy solution, you need a very powered device. Not very, I mean, at least good powered device, because you need to compensate for the loss of photons and the reflection of the light from the skin. So conclusions. We're almost there, I promise. I put 2 extra slides yesterday just to add one thought. But basically, what have we learned? So first, LED modifies the cell metabolism through the action of light. The light emitted by the LEDs will stimulate the synthesis of biochemical reactions that take place in our cells. So in a very, very big nutshell, if I need to synthesize what I just learned, LED is being received by particular chromophores photoreceptors in my body, helping the energy factory of my cells to produce more energy, okay? Which is the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, basically. And the more energy I have, the faster I regenerate my cell, the faster I produce the desired effect. Because depending on the depth, okay, of my skin, I'm not going to target the same effect, whether it's on the epidermis, dermis, hypodermis, etc. I'm not going to target the same thing. Either it's going to be production of collagen, on specific fibers in the skin, fibroblasts, etc. Or if I want to work on wound healing, on anti-aging, deeper anti-aging, not going to target the same thing. So it's important to understand this. We learned as well that the LED is being absorbed by chromophores, of course, talking about the melanin, the hemoglobin, the proteins, and the water. So again, melanin, hemoglobin, proteins up to 600 nanometers is the optimal way to absorb. So bear in mind when you work with your individual wavelengths. And water up to 850 nanometers. 3, this photonic energy is then shipped to the cell energy factory, so the mitochondria, the energy factory of the cells, enhance cell rejuvenation, used in diverse applications such as, I said it, stimulation of fibroblasts, cells in the skin that produce elastin and other fibers, and collagen productions, leading to further, more youthful, smoother skin with fewer wrinkles and fine lines. 5, each color equals, one color equals one wavelength, helping on a broad range of applications. So again, blue light might help in a range of application, red light, yellow, green, etc. Infrared. But the idea is that I can combine these wavelengths in more specific protocols, what we call protocols, at least in France, for more specific applications and better efficiency. And lastly, almost lastly, distance of use, okay, the distance from my panel to my skin, and power of my device, power of this big boy right here, is key to actually provide results, as the photons contained in the emitted light naturally disperse themselves when traveling, and B, the skin acts as a barrier, letting only 40%, 50% of that energy in. So it's important that you have something that's powerful, that comes with protocol, ideally, because, for example, here, you can work with the individual wavelengths if you want. You can work with the protocol already pre-programmed. You just select the protocol, cast the energy one after the other, not combine. That's another thought, because I have my panel right here. Let's say I combine red with blue. That sounds great in a nutshell. But if I have half blue, half red, I'm already losing 50% of my energy. What about the remainder of the 50% of red light? Or in my science school, okay, I have two colors together, but I need to increase considerably the time of treatment. So depending on the application, might be good, might not be good. If I have light work to do, I can combine theoretically on the same panel, trading a little bit of time for sure. But the idea in our device, at least, is that you have, let's say you do one specific protocol on stretch marks. I'm going to work, for example, yellow light, red light, and infrared. I start with yellow light for a specific amount of energy in a specific time. And then once I'm done with that time, let's say 7 minutes, 10 minutes, I'm going to switch. It's going to switch automatically to the second color, and then the third, etc., and etc., up to 5. That's basically how it's done. And the third thing that you can do with this is that you can use to your own expertise, own knowledge. I know there's naturopath we work with, develop their own protocols. Okay, so you have the opportunity to use specific wavelengths and combine them together and build your own protocols. Because we train you. Basically, if you go forward with probably other companies do it. At least what we do, if you go forward with our device, we train you additionally on understanding better the wavelengths, what am I treating really, understanding all the protocols, et cetera, et cetera. And lastly, LED kind of rocks. I hope you like it too. I hope you find this interesting as I think it is. We have a lot of technologies in our catalog in France, here as well in the US. But this is one of the most, it'll go through time because it doesn't take consumables. It's very profitable. It's growing awareness by the day. There's more protocol being used. And yeah, as long as it's FDA approved and you have someone that explains you correctly, this is an exceptional product to work with. Whether it's ours, there's other good companies on the market. But I would say our experience makes it a little bit extra special. Yeah.